There's this quote by George Adair that goes, "Everything you've ever wanted is sitting on the other side of fear." So today we're going to be talking all about how do we get past that fear. And guess what? It requires us to get a little bit uncomfortable. Let's be clear, nobody likes to really get uncomfortable. But growth lies in that ability for us to move past our fears and be a little uncomfortable. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this episode. Getting comfortable, being uncomfortable. Hi, I'm Jessica Hwang, your career transition coach, and welcome to this episode of Permission to Flow. So why are we talking about this? Let's be clear, when you want to create the life that you really want for yourself, you're gonna have to get a little uncomfortable. We like to live in our comfort zones. It's comfortable. Who doesn't like that? But in order for us to create the life that we really want, and in order for us to do things that are different than what we're doing today, it's gonna require us to be uncomfortable. Something that I have learned along this journey of starting this podcast, of becoming an entrepreneur, of being a coach, is that it's a really deep journey of self-development. I'm constantly being challenged to step outside of my comfort zone, of doing things differently, of learning new ways, of trying something that I have never even thought I would do before. And that is how I have grown and really changed my life. It has really been a series of tiny ways in which I have gotten myself uncomfortable with something and been able to grow and learn and take on new challenges and step into a little bit at a time this new version of myself. And so as I've seen that in myself, I mean, let's face it, this entire podcast has been one giant lesson in being uncomfortable. You know, little story is that I remember the first time that I hit record and decided to record that very first episode. Wow, was I uncomfortable. Wow, was I not ready, or, telling myself, I was just like, I don't know about this. And I had to be okay with that and say, I'm going to do it anyway. And I think that is the thing about getting uncomfortable, about fear, is that it's not that those things really completely go away. And I want to normalize that fact. It's not that we are ever like, oh, I'm never going to be uncomfortable again, or I'm never going to have fears come up. No, that is part of the journey, is experiencing this fear, this discomfort, and choosing to do it anyway, choosing to find that comfort in being uncomfortable. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the mindset shifts, how to reframe being uncomfortable. We're going to talk about taking on mini challenges, and we're going to talk about getting closer to the discomfort instead of getting farther away. Before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about what is going on when we feel uncomfortable, kind of on a biological level for us when this is occurring. Our nervous system has what is called that fight, flight, or freeze response. And so when we get triggered by something, when something feels unsafe or uncomfortable or a fear is coming up, our bodies go into this kind of automatic response where it wants to take one of those three courses, right? And it's kind of a very, very visceral automatic reaction, a knee-jerk reaction, if you will, that we want to fight, flight, or freeze. And the thing is that we can learn to kind of work with this and know that it's going to happen, right? And realize that this is a normal reaction that is occurring for every single one of us. And we can learn to work with it, not be upset about it or be like, oh, why is this happening? But instead go, okay, this is the normal sensation that is going to occur in my body. Let me work with it. Let me figure out how can I expand my comfort zone or expand my ability to be okay being uncomfortable so that we can work with it instead of seeing it as something that's bad or something that we have to fight against. All right, so let's dive into how do we reframe in our minds what it is that's going on when we feel uncomfortable. So here's the thing is, as I said, who really loves being uncomfortable? I would venture to guess none of us really love it. Aside from maybe those like people that are massive thrill seekers, maybe they really love it. I don't know. But anyway, the case is that by and large, most of us don't really love getting uncomfortable. But here's the thing. As I said in that quote earlier, everything that we want is sitting on the other side of that fear. And the thing is that we need to learn to be uncomfortable and feel like that's okay, right? That we're going to still be safe. And I think part of that is really gaining a sense of normalizing the fact that sometimes we're going to have to get uncomfortable and being okay with that, right? So if you are trying to change your career, for example, if you are breaking outside that box of what you've been doing, right? Because let's be honest, the career path that you've been on has been safe and it's been comfortable in certain ways. Even if you're unhappy, it is probably a lot of the safety and comfort that is keeping you there. Instead, we are trying to break ourselves a little bit out of that box and be able to go, okay, I want to move in this direction. I don't want to stay safe anymore or stay safe in the way of this job. Not that we're going into a place of being completely in a risk area or anything like that, but instead it's saying, I'm going to keep myself safe, but in a different way. And instead, it's like, how can we shift ourselves, finding what would really keep us safe, what would help us feel some sense of safety, even when we're making big changes for ourselves, even when we're going to be uncomfortable. And so this is such an important practice that we need to make for ourselves in terms of being able to change the path that we want, that we are going down. One of the main things that I think is really important to remember about this is that it is temporary. And whether or not we're talking about the immediate moment of some discomfort coming up, or if we're talking about a much broader perspective, I want you to remember that everything is temporary. The discomfort that you're feeling is temporary. The uncertainty of being able to make this move or whatever it is temporary. I think that remembering that can help us kind of ease into the fact that it's like, it's not going to be like this forever. Because when we're in that, especially if we're kind of having some kind of triggered response or, that initial moment of like, I'm really uncomfortable. I do not like this. I really want to react and move in this and get back to a place of comfort. We have to kind of take a beat and go, but this is temporary. We're not going to stay here. It's okay. We're just going to be temporarily uncomfortable and kind of grounding ourselves in the fact that like we're going to be okay. I love to think about how can we ground ourselves in the fact that we are going to take care of ourselves and the fact that we are going to make sure that we are safe and okay and everything's okay. But that is going to help us be able to be in this place of discomfort and still go, it's fine. Everything's fine. I got my own back. I'm going to, be okay through this discomfort. Another thing I want you to remember is that it really truly is that when we're in discomfort that we grow. And it's funny because I remember someone saying to me, I think through one of my coaching programs, that real success is sitting in the work that you're avoiding. And I was like, oh, I do not want to hear that. Like just hearing that phrase alone made me be like, oh God, step away. No, thank you. But when I really think about it, it is so true. It is so true that the path forward, the way for us to be successful in whatever we're doing is probably sitting in the things that we're really avoiding. And that's why it's like, we gotta like go, oh God, I gotta get uncomfortable. And as unpleasant as that may be, remembering again that it is temporary, that it is short term. Because here's the thing about it, and I want to really make sure that you remember this. When you repeatedly do something, when you practice something, you get better at it and you become more comfortable with it, right? Like it's just oftentimes in the beginning that we have to get through that beginning stage, that area where you're like, this is not what I want to be doing. This is uncomfortable, right? Like I'm new to this thing. And so being able to look at it and go, it's okay, it's temporary, and remembering that fact, I shared in the last video about that this feeling of, oh, when I look back at January, there's all these things that I have overcome and they have become second nature to me. And it's so true that anything that you're starting, the initial phase may feel that discomfort, that energy of that newness, right? And feeling like, oh, I'm going to be bad at this, or like I don't like this feeling, but you're going to get through that, and after some repetition, it's going to get easier. And so I think grounding yourself in remembering that is going to help you break through that initial discomfort. So remember, the real growth is sitting in getting uncomfortable. And I want you to just remember that, but really ground yourself in the temporary nature of that discomfort and know like you're going to get to the other side. And look for examples of that. Look for examples of times that you've gotten uncomfortable with something and you've managed to get through it and keep going. Let's be honest, what I'm doing right now is certainly something that I, especially initially, was extremely uncomfortable with. I cannot express to you how much talking to a camera and blasting my thoughts out into the world was something that was incredibly nerve-wracking and outside of my comfort zone, and quite frankly, something I literally never thought I would be doing, if I'm being totally honest. But it's something that I have learned to get comfortable with. I have learned to find that it's okay and I will get better over time, and being able to get comfortable with that discomfort. Like right now, I've changed up my setup. I can't even like look at myself. My screen is over here. I'm just staring at the camera right now. That's pretty uncomfortable for me. But again, I've just learned to get comfortable with it and practice it. And the first time I hit that record button, it certainly felt really freaking weird. And then over time I said, okay, I'm just going to do it again and do it again and do it again, to the point where now I don't find it particularly strange. I have normalized it for myself. So that's what I'm talking about with that temporary nature, where it's like those initial times are going to feel uncomfortable. But as long as you're able to keep doing it, you will push past that point. That discomfort is just that initial temporary feeling. Okay, so now that we've talked about kind of this mindset and really grounding ourselves in the temporary nature of being uncomfortable, let's talk a little bit about how do we challenge ourselves. So here's the thing about it that I think is really, really great is that you get to choose the parameter in which you're going to be uncomfortable. And in order for us to start to expand this for ourselves, I think it's a really great practice to start small. And it's interesting. I've been thinking about this a lot. For me, actually, I think a major part of why I've learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable is actually through my yoga practice. For anyone who doesn't know, Dharma yoga is a hatha yoga style practice. And in the practice, we are often holding a pose for an extended period of time, and it becomes like a moving meditation. And it's interesting, especially in Dharma's class, where he often will kind of drift away and go and help some students, sometimes for an incredibly long time. Like he gets in a zone and he just really wants to adjust multiple people, and you're just staying in that pose, holding it for dear life. And it's been such an interesting practice to say, can I hold it the entire time that he is adjusting other people? Can I allow myself to be uncomfortable in this pose? Because let's face it, after a little while, you are pretty freaking uncomfortable. You're going, I really want to get out. And so it's this really interesting practice to be able to go, all right, how do I breathe into this discomfort? How do I allow myself to rest in this place, even though I'm so uncomfortable. And what I realized is doing that on my mat has allowed me to then be able to be more uncomfortable in other circumstances, being able to do things like this, what I was talking about with talking to the camera, right? And being able to apply these little places of discomfort that I have been practicing it in, and then apply it to those bigger instances that I need to work through. And so for you, I want you to imagine what would be small things. What are like the mini challenges in which you can get yourself outside of your comfort zone and do something in a small way that would help you get comfortable being uncomfortable. Maybe it's that you feel super uncomfortable talking to strangers. And so it's like, can you challenge yourself to just start a casual conversation with someone in a coffee shop? Can you go and practice yoga? You can come to my class anytime. For one of my clients, it was sitting on the subway or and let's be clear, that makes me very uncomfortable. But can you do something that makes you a little bit uncomfortable, but isn't anything crazy, but it just helps you get out of your comfort zone. And it really is such an important skill, I think, for us to be to do for ourselves just in general. But it's like this is something that is, as you expand this ability to be uncomfortable, it's going to take you so much further than you can even imagine. And so it's like finding those little tiny ways in which you can get uncomfortable. It's That's how you start to expand. This is how we grow as people, right? Is that we're able to expand our horizons. We're able to step outside a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and our comfort zone will get bigger in essence. And after you do it, realize how you felt. Go, oh wow, I just did that thing, even though it made me uncomfortable, but I got through it. Right. And so that's what I'm saying. Like, try these little tiny mini challenges and do them regularly. Regularly do something that feels a little bit outside of your comfort zone and make it into a habit, because it's going to help you just normalize this feeling of going, okay, instead of having that fight, flight, freeze response, I'm moving with it. I'm continuing forward. And so that is something that we're almost training ourselves, right? I like to remind ourselves, like, it's not in the moments when like something massive happens that we want to be practicing. It is that we want to be practicing when it's like low stakes. We want to be practicing when it's something small, when it's something like that you get to choose in this case, right? You get to choose your own adventure, if you will. You get to go, okay, I'm going to take this one little step outside my comfort zone, start this conversation, or put myself out there in this way that I don't normally do, or record that video that I've been putting off, or whatever it is, and see how it goes, and do it in a tiny way, and allow that to become like a normal thing that we do, right? We're okay just like having that initial reaction and moving through it, and finding that, like, oh, we made it to the other side, we're safe, we're okay, and grounding ourselves in that. And it's like the more little examples that we can find for that, the more we're able to manage through the bigger examples. Then we're able to go, oh, I already stacked up this full roster of times when I have stepped outside my comfort zone in these small ways. So when the bigger one comes along, you already have evidence that it can be done, and you can apply what you learned through that into these bigger examples of stepping outside our comfort zone. Now that we talked about reframing it as temporary and stepping outside in these mini challenges, how do we get closer to the discomfort instead of farther away? Here's the thing, right? As I mentioned, this fight, flight, freeze response, I think a lot of times we want to run away. Running away it feels pretty good, right? You're like, I'm uncomfortable, let me bail out. And instead, it's like, instead of us moving away from the fear, away from the discomfort, it's like, how can we actually take a step closer to it? How can we actually go, okay, what is going on here, and not be in total avoidance? And I'm going to repeat this. I mentioned this in the last episode, but I'll repeat it here as well. In yoga, there are these terms of raga and devesha. It's our attachment and avoidance. And part of our work in this lifetime is how do we not get too attached to the good and not be totally avoiding the quote unquote bad, right? Is our ability to kind of find that middle path, find that middle ground instead of kind of ping-ponging between these two extremes. And so I think about that a lot in terms of the things that we're avoiding and how do we kind of normalize them and work through them. And a lot of that work comes from our ability to get closer to the things that we're avoiding instead of farther away. So how do we do that? One of the things that I love doing, and it's so simple, is really just coming back to our breath. And to me, it's like, if you think about when you have these initial reactions, when we're in these kind of like triggered, uncomfortable spots, it's noticing how our bodies react, right? Our bodies usually like tense up, our heart rate might accelerate. There's these visceral responses, that automatic nervous system response that occurs when we're uncomfortable, when we're kind of triggered or anything like that. And so I think it's interesting for us to pay attention to like what is going on in our physical anatomy that is actually signaling to us like I'm uncomfortable, I don't like this. And so we're noticing it, we're getting closer to it. We're going, okay, I see how this is occurring in my body. And then we're going to be able to work through that, right? So, everything is just our noticing, is our paying attention to what is really going on for us. So in this case, when we become uncomfortable, when we become triggered or have like some kind of fear come up, it is noticing those kind of knee-jerk reactions. And then the next thing is breathing through them. So our breath is something that is so incredibly powerful. And it can be as simple as taking 3 long breaths. And I like to think of it as like having it where your inhales, nice long inhale, and a nice long exhale that's a little bit longer than the inhale. And so taking 3 long inhales and exhales. I'll take one more inhale and a long, deep exhale. And it's just doing that alone. Like even notice right now, like I'm talking a little bit slower. My heart rate is slowed down. It's like that alone it's so powerful. It's so interesting even in this moment, noticing how it's even changed my physiology of me talking to you right now. But it's coming back to that breath is so powerful. Another great example is from my Dharma yoga practice is something called calming breathing. And so it's a breath of inhaling for 4, holding for 2, and then exhaling for 4. And so here, we can practice it a little bit here. If you don't want to listen to it, you can speed ahead right now. So it would be something along the lines of this. You would exhale completely, and then you would inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, exhale, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, exhale, 2, 3, 4, inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, exhale, 2, 3, 4. And so it's practicing this as well can really help us calm ourselves down and again bring ourselves back to that like still, nice, slowing the heart rate, relaxing, removing that tension from the body. It's interesting as a yoga teacher, I've noticed just how much for myself, I hold all my tension in my shoulders. And I see that, like each of us holds our tension in different parts of our body. And so noticing where is it that you hold tension in your body? Noticing, oh, Am I tensing up that part? Do I feel that right now, right? Some people hold in their stomachs, some in their shoulders or their back, or, other people get tension headaches. There's so many ways in which we are holding, tensing up, holding on to something. And instead, if we can relax and let it go, it's like that's how we move ourselves through that discomfort, is that we calm ourselves down. We remind ourselves that we're going to be okay. I love these physical practices. I think they're incredibly powerful. I also think that there's a place of getting closer to that discomfort through asking yourself questions about it, right? So you can ask yourself, what is this feeling that's coming up for me? Like, why am I uncomfortable? What is going on for me? What is coming up, if you will, right? So we can also do some of these practices as well. We can get ourselves a little bit closer to that discomfort. And so I think all of these practices are so incredibly powerful for us to be able to go, okay, how can I support myself? And again, as I was saying before, I want you to imagine you're going to practice this when you're not in that state, when you're not uncomfortable. It's like, can you practice taking these deep breaths? Can you practice calming breathing, that 4-2-4 breathing? And making those into kind of normal things for you, like normal practices, so that when something comes up, you can go, okay, here's my list of things I do when I feel uncomfortable. I take some deep breaths. I ask myself the question of like, why am I uncomfortable right now? And I get a little bit closer to it. So making that into a practice for yourself, even when you're not uncomfortable, you can then do it when you are uncomfortable. So when you're not uncomfortable, you can also ask yourself, like, how am I feeling? How am I doing? Checking in with ourselves. I think that this is something that many of us don't even think to do, right? We're just kind of like running amok, doing all the things. But how often do you ask yourself, like, how am I feeling? How am I feeling? Even when you're not feeling any particular way, like right now, how am I feeling? Well, right now I am feeling like, I don't know, I feel pretty enthused. I'm doing something I love doing. I have gotten past the discomfort of talking to a camera and I feel pretty good about it, right? So being able to do these little check-ins with ourselves is so important and so helpful in terms of when those times arise when we are uncomfortable, we can then go back and rely on those practices that we have already built up for ourselves. So even if you're listening to this right now and you probably don't feel uncomfortable, you're just hanging out, relaxing, listening to this podcast or on YouTube or whatever the case may be. And so it's like, how do it right now. Practice asking yourself, how are you feeling right now? I keep a list of some of my favorite quotes, and this is one of my quotes that I think about a lot. So it's Marcus Aurelius, and it says, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your own estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment. And I love, love, love this quote because it puts that agency back into ourselves, right? Where it's like we can always choose a different path. And so I think this is so important in everything that we've talked about, right? You get to choose the path forward. You get to choose how you're looking at being uncomfortable. You can choose to see it as, oh, I'm just going to flee every single time. Or you can choose to go, it is temporary. It's okay. I can get through this. It makes me think of this parable that talks about the wolf we feed, right? Are we feeding the wolf that is making this problem or this discomfort bigger and we're just going to run for the hills? Or are we able to feed the wolf that is actually helping us gain more comfort and be okay with being in that discomfort? You get to choose that path. And I love putting ourselves back into that driver's seat and reminding ourselves of that fact. Like you get to choose how you are seeing discomfort. Are you seeing it as this god-awful challenge that you can't handle? Or are you choosing to go, I can handle this. I got this. One of my favorite things to tell myself all the time is, I got this. Or you can say, you got this. You do have this. You can learn to be more comfortable being uncomfortable. In this episode, we have talked so much about how we have learned to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So we talked a little bit about how can we frame it as temporary and see it as the way that we grow, right? Like look at it as a necessary challenge, right? Like I love to use the word challenge instead of something that feels like, oh God, I can't do it. Like, oh, this is just a challenge. And we talked about taking on mini challenges. How can you make things bite-sized? How can you step outside your comfort zone in tiny ways so that we can train ourselves to feel like, oh, this is okay. We can do this. We have learned to practice stepping outside of our comfort zone. And last but not least, it's about getting closer to that discomfort, really taking on a lens of saying, what is going on for me in my body? What is going on in my mind? And it's really about digging into the problem, getting closer to it instead of moving ourselves farther away. And I will say, if you are definitely feeling like, oh my God, there's so many challenges in front of me and I need more support around this, then this is exactly the kind of work that I do with so many of my clients. And to be honest, this entire episode really came from a client session and a discussion that I was having with my clients around really being able to step outside of their comfort zone. So I think it's so important for us to be able to get the support that we need when we need it. So if you feel like you need assistance and you're like, this is something that I don't know how to take on myself and I want support in doing so, then definitely go to my website, jessicahwangcoaching.com, and book a free call with me. And I would love to support you in your journey of being able to step outside that comfort zone and move yourself into the path that you really want for yourself. Thank you so, so much for tuning into this episode, and I will see you in the next one. Want to create more flow in your life? Go to the description below and sign up for the email list. I'll be sharing more insights and strategies with you, just like the ones you heard today. Remember, the power to create the life you desire resides within you, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. The world needs what you will create.